we are here with Miss Leslie Garcia. And so we are talking today about managing stress or that entrepreneurial stress. So um, let's see, I left federal service in 2014 and started my own business thereafter. And I'll tell you, in the beginning, it wasn't as stressful as it is for me now. And I'll say,
Mm.
in my mind, my theory is I wasn't really, you know, doing a lot of things that I need to do as an entrepreneur. I think I was just kind of like doing all the fun stuff, doing a website, getting my business cards, going to little networking events, and that's all the fun things. But when you really, really begin to start building out your business, it's tough. It is stressful. And sometimes I found that for me as an entrepreneur, it's hard to turn off. So how do you do that? So that's what I want to talk about today. How do you turn it off when you need to? How do you manage that stress? And just kind of give yourself the grace or the rest you need to kind of, continue on that journey. So before we get into all that, though, I want you, Leslie, to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and just give us some insight into the counseling space.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dr. Zamora, for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Garcia, and I'm a clinical social worker and a wellness consultant. I'm based out of New York City. I own a mental health practice called Counseling Space, where we offer mental health counseling, education, and consulting. We love working with business owners, business leaders, and we also provide consulting for corporations. And really, our goal is to tackle that mental stress that's interfering with your success. And it is my mission and my passion to be in spaces or create spaces where we humanize mental health. So I really appreciate this opportunity, Dr. Zamora.
Oh, you are welcome. I think it's like taboo. I think people think that when you start your own business, like you're this super human person, and that, especially, if you are succeeding in your business, people don't think that you go through those various stressors, or either, there's the stress of paying people, but they don't think about, I think, the mental health aspect of it. And it's become popular in the last couple of years, and we kind of talk about, these self-care Sundays, and we have wellness Wednesdays and other stuff like that. But it's like, um, I'm just gonna be real. I need a little bit more than that, sometimes, because sometimes, I'm want to throw in the towel, just to be quite frankly. I get frustrated. Sometimes I'm stressed, and I jokingly say, like, I used to quit like every month. Be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Um, it's just too much. At one point, I think I was, seriously considering, dusting off my resume. But then, you think about the benefits of entrepreneurship, and then it can sometimes, kind of walk you back. But what do you do on the days when you don't have that, those little things to kind of lift you?
So there is so much to unpack, right? So basically, with mental health, when we talk about the definition of mental health, it's really our capability of how we handle stress, right? Our thoughts, how we interact in society, relationships. So it's really our overall psychological health. So everyone has mental health, just like everyone has physical health. But mental health conditions, that's a whole different story, and it's actually increasing more and more. Obviously, it's being either increased or exacerbated related to the pandemic. And it now shows that one in five people suffer from mental health conditions. So when we talk about
Wow.
entrepreneurship, right? It's think about even if we have, I don't know how many people are watching, but let's say if you interact with multiple phone calls and Zoom meetings and with more than five people, you've just interacted with someone that has a mental health condition and have no clue. So the circle is so small.
That's crazy because, and I'm thinking about that because it's like if you, especially if you're on back to back calls, and sometimes I'm on these teaming calls and there it's like six, seven of us on the call. So you could literally have, you know, two people that could be, having a hard time that day on that
Absolutely.
call. And, it's like sometimes, and I've heard people say this, like, always smile or speak to someone because you just never know what kind of day that they're having, take a little extra time to be kind. And that is becoming, really, really hard in these times, like, because I always take the time. I feel like everyone has value. So if I'm in the Walmart or whatever I'm doing, I'm stopping, I'm asking, if someone's checking me out, I have a lot of stuff. I feel for her or him, because I have a whole two baskets full of stuff. So I'm talking to usually talking to them, but this pandemic has really made me kind of like, take a step back. I don't really do that as much anymore because I don't really want to stand in front of someone for 10 minutes or so, engaging, not really knowing if they're sick or something like that. But the point that you just made about the Zoom call, that is very eye opening.
Yeah, it puts it in perspective, right? So we're in multiple meetings because the faces, there's a stigma, obviously, and I believe it's getting better, but it's still there. We still have work to do. People like you who are giving their platforms to really talk about it. I mean, and I truly appreciate that. There is still a stigma, but when we talk about the stigma, people think it's people with mental health is severe, they're psychotic or hallucinating, but no, it's your everyday person, the person that you're standing behind at the line at Target or at the supermarket, the people or the team members that you're having Zoom meetings, that's really the typical face of people who are having mental health challenges, because the two
Mhm.
common conditions are depression and anxiety. So going back to your question about, okay, I can't, how do you take time to manage the stress? So I want to highlight an important statement you said, because when I meet with clients, I'm a believer that there's no such thing as stress free, like really stress free. I believe in stress management, because whether we're going to accomplish, when we accomplish a goal, pursuing a goal, it does create certain levels of stress within us, but the management piece is so important. So I really like that you highlighted that, the importance of
Mhm.
stress management. So when we look at mental health conditions, we don't know what the cause is, right? There's no just number one cause. There's multiple risk factors. And obviously it can be job loss. So many people losing their job, their businesses, loss of family, but also having a business is a risk factor. Entrepreneurship is a risk factor to your mental health, and people don't
It is.
realize that, right?
It is, especially when you begin to like bring on employees, personnel, right? Because it's not just about you getting paid now. Now you have people who are an extension of your family. And I definitely, me myself, I feel like that, because they have families and now you become responsible for them. And I think that's just a part of being a leader, probably why I think that way, or maybe my military background is like, if you're in if you're on my team, then I'm looking out for you, always. So, and that kind of, it never goes away, and it's kind of hard to turn off. And so, but yeah, as an entrepreneur, and it's like, I saw something that said something about, how stress can impact how you show up, right? Or it affects your memory, or your ability to perform. And as an entrepreneur, if you're stressed, you're not, I always say for myself, like, I can't create in that space. So if I have to come up with a solution for something, that's very difficult for me to do, especially if I'm tired, or, the anxiety of getting it right, it feels like it compounds it sometimes. So it's like, what are some best practices? Like you say, you can't avoid it.
Hmm.
You know.
Yes. So there are so many best practices. It all depends on the individual. And that's what I like to do is create, because when starting a business, there is a strong emphasis of having a business plan. And so when I come in, okay, well, what does your wellness plan look like and how can they complement each other? So there's
Oh my.
so much emphasis, a business plan, but where is your wellness plan? So just like every business is different, right? And the plan will look different, just the same with the wellness plan. And on the wellness plan, this is what I do: I customize it, because I need to know what are your resources. And when I mean resources, not only about external factors like the environment or monetary resources, but your internal resources as far as your wellness. When it comes to spirituality, there are different dimensions of wellness: financial wellness, your social wellness, your breath. I mean, meditating, right? So I
Wow.
need to really take a look at what how do you access your resources? What are some of the resources that we can continue to reinforce? So, what does that look like? Some of the typical factors to add to your wellness plan. So, number one, have a wellness plan. How do you customize it? Because, like you said, Dr. Zamora, self-care Sundays, getting nails done or whatever we see mostly on social media is not
Yeah.
is not really cutting it. It can be part of the plan, but the higher you well, not the higher, the more ambitious you are as far as elevating your personal or professional growth, like you're elevating, right? You want to elevate your self-care plan also needs to elevate as well, because the journey will be stressful.
Oh man, you just said a whole word there. And let me tell you, so last weekend I was just so tired and my self-care consisted of I spent the whole weekend watching I kind of have a crush on Cary Grant. So I watched all these old black and white movies of him, then kind of watched him, when color came to be, just watching all of these movies. And I laid in bed and I did absolutely nothing. But I found too for me that just doing that, it still wasn't enough because I got a Monday morning and I still felt like I carried the stress from the weekend. Like, so my body was, rested, but, that mind was still my mind still felt foggy because honestly, even though I spent the weekend kind of trying to relax, I was still thinking about work. So I couldn't really kind of like let that go. And I know, like, especially like in a government contracting space, people are worried about the proposals coming through. Like they're spending a lot of money investing, um, putting all these resources sometimes back into their business, and they really need them to pay off. But saying that we need a wellness plan, I don't think people think about that because a part of sometimes we only think about a plan when we want to lose weight or when we want to start lifting weights or working out, but we don't think about the day-to-day mental stressors, and how to overcome those. And I think we worry about it when it gets too late. We're more reactive than we are proactive when it comes to our mental health, and it seems to be the last thing that's on the back burner. People go to church or they go to the gym religiously, but they don't think about the mental wellness as much.
No, you're absolutely right. The proactive approach is lacking, just being proactive. So I would love to see people, especially when they know they're getting ready to encounter a transition in their life, to get that support, to get ready. But no, you're right. The majority of us society, we're pretty much reactive. And typically when a person decides to seek therapy for their mental health conditions, the average wait time is about 8 to 10 years, right? I have not seen anyone said, I needed to be here. I needed to see a therapist last week or last month. It's years and years. So I
Oh man,
encourage
wow.
people to really be proactive. And we are very intuitive. Something is not right.
Mhm.
Don't wait until the last minute, because like you said, people have meal plans, diet plans, business. We talk about business plans, but
Mhm.
if it's untreated and you don't prioritize it, it gets to a point where it does affect your concentration level. It manifests physically, high stress level, chronic stress. does create inflammation. And we hear so much, I mean, we're hearing from so many doctors that inflammation causes illness. There's actually a study about fibromyalgia and depression, not knowing which one comes first. You
Wow.
see research with brain scans, how some parts of the brain, it actually shrinks because of the severe depression that's untreated. So, these are some of the biological side effects, physical side effects. But we're talking also about business, right? You and
Mhm.
I work with business owners, but if you are not prioritizing, something is not right, feeling some level of depression, that affects your business. How? Because you do lose revenue. There's study after study when person is has untreated mental health conditions, there's a loss of revenue and productivity. And for women, women lose more money than men. So
Wow.
it's an
Why
average.
is that? Why
I
is that?
know that
And you said something biological, right? And I'm thinking about I hit a clock, tick, 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 right? And so as you get older, because I think the average entrepreneur like is has to be between that age, and I don't know statistically, so I may get this wrong, but in my small sample size, right, the people I come across tend to be between the age of 35 to like 55 years old. And so that is that prime age where we are going through that shift, both men and women. And so, thinking about the biological impact, and then you put depression and stress on top of that, um, yeah, it's a lot.
it is a lot, but we can be proactive about it. Like you said, we can be proactive. It's treatable. The most common conditions, if you catch it in a way that, look, it makes sense. It's not debilitating. There's help out there. And another reason why I like to encourage people not to ignore it, there aren't enough people doing my work. There aren't enough therapists, really. If you go to different states, especially small towns, the ratio might be 1 to 100, and it doesn't it just it's not catching up. We cannot meet the demand, right? And
Mhm.
so I tell people, please, if you know you need help, go get it, because it's hard to find a therapist for several reasons, whether it be if someone who is specialized to treat you, has the time to treat you, and some of my peers are so booked they can't take anyone. It's hard for me to find someone if I need to refer out. Some are just retiring because of the burnout rate is difficult.
Right.
And so, yes, we talk about the risk factors, but help is out there. Be proactive and be patient when
Mhm.
seeking help, and having this wellness plan and making sure that it is organized in a way that is in alignment with your path in life.
So I have a question. Something that you said made me triggered a thought for me, because in Black and Brown communities, therapy is taboo. But I do like that, you are booked and busy, and so are your friends, because that means that more people are seeking out that support that they need, unless you have that one client that's just absorbing, all of your time. But I doubt that. But no, it's good to see that people are, seeking that support. But how do you get over that? Because, those societal norms are still very real. I think people don't like to admit that they need help. And then, when you are an entrepreneur, you already have a certain kind of, thing going on up here to where you are ready to charge into, risk full speed ahead. Because I think you kind of have to be that way a little bit in order to succeed in business. You have to be okay with being told no 20 times and still have a smile on your face and be like, okay, I'll see you next month. You got to keep coming back, until you get what you want as an entrepreneur. So knowing all of those things, like, how do you encourage somebody to seek the support that they need, despite those social norms that say that therapy is not good, just pray it out, or, you know, or go for a run, or, do other things. Like, how do you encourage people to get the support that they need? Because it doesn't, sometimes you just legitimately need somebody to talk to. And we generally, a lot of people don't have that, especially, like, during a pandemic where a lot of people are still kind of sheltering in place in their homes. And it's been almost a year. Since I've been around anybody else other than, going to the grocery store. So it's like,
Yeah.
and the people that you're living with, you're like two days away from, tripping them down the stairs or something because they're driving you insane. So, what do you do? How do you encourage people to get the support that they need, so that they can be better for their business?
And so your question as far as supporting the message of the importance of therapy, right? The importance of
Hmm.
therapy. Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with our communities, and there is a reason behind it. When you look at the history of how we've been treated in the medical world, we have been there's a long history of mistreatment, and there's actually history and research shows when you are diagnosing someone who is not from our race, it's actually more severe, can show the same symptoms, but it is more severe. The diagnosis is more severe, even though the symptoms are similar, right? And that having that history, we can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. So there's a level of understanding and empathy we have to have. But when encouraging the message of therapy and the importance of therapy, I'm okay with other resources that they are implementing, and therapy is just adding to it. It's not saying stop praying or doing the other healthy self-care actions that you're doing, but it's kind of upgrading your wellness. When you have therapy, you have
Hmm.
someone who's objective, so it's an approach that you're educating people what this is about, because there's a stigma. But once people are open to hearing what it's about, and we have different opportunities to speak about it, like yourself having this platform, it makes it easier. I do believe that is a reason why the stigma is starting to eliminate slowly, gradually, but
Hmm.
because we're having an open discussion, we're having dialogue, we are seeing celebrities talking about it as well. So there's the
Right.
education piece. There is, I mean, we also have a responsibility, whether we are not in therapy, but if you share that you believe in it and you support it, that makes impact in the circles that you're in as well. So I hope
Hmm.
that makes sense. Yeah.
No, no, it does. And too, and it's not just CEOs, or people in the C-suite that's going through it. It's employees. So, there are different employee wellness programs that business owners can definitely put in place. Even as a small business, some of your insurance providers will have those options where you can get what is it, employee assistance program or
Correct.
EAP type of program. So where, because sometimes, you have an employee, they're great, and then all of a sudden they start slacking off. And then, you know, people always say after the fact, I wish I had known. But, sometimes too, as leaders, we have to pay attention to these things and be willing to, pull someone's coattail and say, hey, if you don't want to talk to me, go talk to someone. And that was actually kind of my first experience when I was in the military. After my mom passed away, my senior chief noticed the difference in my behavior, or like I was very short tempered, and he pulled me to the side and he said, either you go speak to someone on your own, or I'm going to make that point. Pretty much I'm going to make that point before you, or kind of force you to go. And it was kind of like the best thing for me. And I went over to we had Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, and they provided, free wellness sessions, and that was kind of like my first experience. But I did have somebody that kind of in their own way that I know was looking out for my best interest kind of tell me like, hey, something's wrong and you need to talk to someone. And that sometimes we need to know it's okay, to sometimes, you go through things and pay attention to what's going on in your life, stop, and get the support that you need so that you can be better. Because I don't think anyone, wants to be stressed, wants to be overwhelmed, but we definitely need to be okay with getting the support that we need.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another factor too. And you're starting to see more and more of workplace wellness and implementing these resources. In fact, a friend of mine is doing a virtual retreat, a wellness retreat for her team, and she invited me to speak. And so that I think that's great. Just having maybe workshops or self care. We do self care workshops for small organizations that may not have the employee assistance program structure, but inviting different wellness practitioners for a half a day and do some type of self-care activities. So even looking at the business structure where it does recognize the importance, the psychological safety of their employees, and that's another important because it's a dual advantage, right, for the
Mhm.
supervisor, the leader, the owner, and for the employees as well, and the people that you serve.
So how could a small business that would probably be interested, or anybody that wanted to speak to you, how could they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yes, so they can email me info@counselingpc.com. That's info at counseling, the letter P as in peace, the letter C as in clear.com. And so that's the best way to reach me via email for sure. And my counselingpc.com is my website.
Awesome. Well, I know you have a 1 o'clock, so I'm gonna be respectful of your time, but I definitely appreciate you coming here. You have to come back because I did have a question about self-sabotaging. I thought about
Oh,
that, like,
yes.
can we sabotage ourselves? And so we definitely have to come back and do a part two. But it's always so therapeutic talking
Thank
to
you.
you. So this was selfish, having you on here because I always felt like I get a little extra every time we talk. So, and it's
It's my
just, you are
pleasure.
just a great listener, and you just provide a safe space for people to ask all the questions that they need. So I definitely appreciate it and definitely encourage people that if they want to reach out to you, definitely do so and think about, not just your stressors, but the stress that we're putting on the personnel in our organizations, and, put the things in place so they can get the support that they need so we can continue to grow our
Thank
businesses.
you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'll talk to you later.
It's a pleasure. Take
Okay.
care, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. Bye bye. Well, thank you guys. I definitely appreciate you guys, whether you're watching the live video or the replay. If you have questions, definitely put them in the comment section below, and I will definitely make sure that Miss Garcia gets your questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed our lab today, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.